Hey there, welcome back to another video. This time, I'm talking about my thoughts on Superman the movie. I was originally going to see if I could talk about Superman the movie and Superman 2 in one video, but I don't think that's going to be possible, because there's a lot of things I want to talk about in regards to Superman the movie, and a lot of things I want to talk about in regards to Superman 2. These are probably these are my two favorite Superman films, so, um, I wanted to give them at least both 15 minutes, the full 15-minute limit, because if I just tried to talk about them both in one video, that wouldn't be enough. And I hate that I only have 15 minutes, but here we go. First off, before I talk about the movie itself, I want to talk about, in my opinion, how the film has impacted superhero films and comic book movies that have come after it, and how that this impact has honestly been pretty underrated. If you ask me, Superman the movie, or Superman 1978, as it's said by other people, is the most influential comic book movie of all time. And why am I saying this? Well, before Superman the movie, there were Superman serials. There were cartoons. There was even Batman serials, and there was a Superman movie, Superman versus the Mole Man, which I've never seen. But it's more of a spin-off of the TV show, which was really popular at the time, with George Reeves. Now, when you got to Superman the movie, which came out in 1978, it was a critical and financial success. And it was the first superhero film to do that. It was a film that probably the studio had doubts about, probably only, in a way, might have only made it because of the success of Star Wars. Star Wars was hugely successful. Warner Brothers wanted something like it. Somebody suggested Superman, and it gets the rest history. And they put faith in the writers. They put faith in Richard Donner. They put faith in the cast and crew, and it ended up working out. Superman the movie ended up being a huge blockbuster, much like Jaws a few years before it, and Star Wars a year before. It was a huge blockbuster. It was a huge hit, and it paved the path for comic book adaptations that would follow it. Because of the fact it was so successful critically and financially, studios were more willing to spend money on bigger budgeted superhero movies. Now, they were still leery after Superman the movie because maybe they thought it was just a fluke. But after Superman 2 was a success, Superman 3 made some money, Superman 4 didn't make that much. But, then we had Batman in '89, which is a huge hit. Then the pieces started to fall into place. And the studios started to take comic book properties more seriously. They started to look at them as actual viable ways of making money and getting people to go to the movie theater and pay money to see, these movies. And yes, I do believe that even if Superman the movie wasn't a huge hit, that eventually there'd be another movie that would come along that was based on a comic book property that would be huge, that would be just as successful, and would start the same chain reaction. But since Superman the movie is the first film to technically do that, then I really do believe that Superman the movie is the most influential comic book movie of all time. Because without its success, without its popularity, without the impact that it had, superhero films wouldn't be anywhere near where they are right now. I mean, like I said, eventually I think they might be close, but I think they'd be a little bit behind. And we'd have a lot more lower budgeted, independent adaptations of these comic book characters with really low budgets that don't really do the characters or the source material justice. And so, yeah, thanks Superman the movie for having less canon films adaptations of superheroes. And of course, then what's ironic is that Canon Films would go on to buy the rights to Superman, and then do Superman 4, which is definitely the worst, one of the worst superhero adaptations out there, one of the worst Superman movies. I just wanted to say that before I talked about the movie. Um, the movie itself, it's a classic. Directed by Richard Donner is really well done. It's some of his best. It's some of his best work. He really handles his shots well. The cinematography is also is really great. The sequences on Krypton are really gorgeous to look at. Jeffrey Unsworth did a great job with the cinematography in the film. The screenplay by Mario Puzo and David and Leslie Newman and Robert Benton. All these different writers combined together, and they worked on different versions of the script, and they ended up working things out really well. The cast, you can't really come up with a better cast. It's a perfect cast, if you ask me. You got, of course, Christopher Reeve, who plays Superman, and Clark Kent. Perfect casting choice. Pitch perfect. You could not have picked a better actor to portray the Silver Age Superman than Christopher Reeve. He was a perfect choice. And it was crazy. I find it crazy that Warner Brothers waited so long. He auditioned before. They weren't thinking he was that good. And then they went with all these other actors. Mainly, they thought it was okay, but they're like, he's not the star. We need the star. And I'm like, Clint Eastwood or Sylvester Stallone as Superman is a stupid idea. No. And eventually, Warner Brothers did get some sense after they auditioned and did a huge casting search and tried to and shoehorn whatever big star they could into Superman's tights. But eventually, they got a clue and went with Chris Reeve, and the rest is history. Of course, you also have Gene Hackman, who plays Superman's nemesis, Lex Luthor, and Gene Hackman was a good casting choice too. I would say Kevin Spacey's a little bit better than Gene Hackman because I do like Gene Hackman's character, but he's definitely a more campy version of Lex. And the whole film is full of camp. But what's interesting about this movie is that, yeah, it was done on purpose, though, because back in 1978, there's not a single audience or critic that would be able to take this seriously. If you released a movie like Man of Steel back in 1978, it would have gotten critically panned, it would have been killed by word of mouth, and it would have been nowhere near as big of a success as Superman the movie was. In fact, Superman the movie being light and full of camp and with bright colors was an example of perfect timing. Because in the 70s, in the late 70s, you had all these dark, gritty, depressing movies like the Godfather films and so on, and films like that were just the Deer Hunter. It was just like and audiences were really welcome to a film like Superman the movie, which tasted like warm apple pie. It was a perfect, it was perfect timing. It was one of the best times you could have possibly released a Superman movie. And so yeah, I love Lex in this. Gene Hackman's great. I really like it when he gets angry. That's one of my favorite parts of Gene Hackman's character. He gets angry at Otis. And he's like, Otisburg? Otisburg? It's just Lex. It's just a little small town. It's nothing really. Otisburg? That just cracks me up. And of course, when he's yelling for Miss Desmonger, just I have fun with Gene Hackman. He's one of my favorite actors anyway, so that helps too. Rest of the cast is great too. Margot Kidder as Lois Lane, my opinion, the best performance of her career, easily. She's beautiful in this. She's got that spunk you want out of the Lois Lane character. She has great chemistry with Superman and with Clark, which is what you want out of Lois Lane. Um, yeah, I think the casting choice is great. I like the fact that she was approachable in the film. She was beautiful, but she wasn't like supermodel beautiful, and it felt more natural and more believable, so to speak, with her relationship with Superman and with the audience. Then you also have rest of the supporting cast. And we got Ned Beatty plays Otis. one of Alexa's henchmen. You got Valerie Perrin, who plays Alexa's henchwoman. Um, which I really like the fact that she had a little bit of a heart, and she helped Superman at the end. Of course, because Alexis doesn't care. He's crazy. He's gonna blow up her grandmother, on Hackensack. Um, and I also really, really, really like Glenn Ford's performance as Pa Kent. It's the quintessential Pa Kent on film, if you ask me. I mean, you could not come up with a better casting choice, and there has not been a better portrayal of Clark's father figure on film than Glenn Ford. Um, he did a great job. He's always left a lasting impression on me. And when his character died, it was so sudden, and it still makes me cheer up every time. And you feel so much for Clark. And then at the funeral, where he's just like, with all my powers, I couldn't save him. And that really shows you that even Superman can't do everything. And the film did a great job showcasing that. And then, of course, you have Jackie Cooper, who plays Perry White, the head guy of the Daily Planet. And so, there's a few other cast and crew members, but those are the main ones I wanted to mention. I mean, I like Mark McClure too as Jimmy Olsen. And so the cast is great, and the direction is great, and then you have the visual effects, which are great, which won an Oscar, and it was well deserved. I love the look of Krypton. The effects of Krypton were great, especially when it started to fall apart. The flying is some of the most graceful and some of the most natural looking flying sequences that I've ever seen in a movie. The closest I think a movie can get to this film's level in terms of flying is Hook. It's so graceful. It's so wonderful to watch. I love it. It's a great mix of blue screen and an actor on wires and a harness. And it's still a wonder to look at and to behold to this day in 2016. The other visual effects, the stuff with the earthquake and the dam breaking, you can tell it's a model, but it has a certain charm to it that I don't mind. And for the time period, it was really impressive. And then, of course, you have the score, which, wow. Wow, John Williams' score is amazing. It is super. It really is. It's super. It fits the film perfectly. It embodies every element of Superman you could think of, to the somber moments, then to the triumphant ones. It is, in my opinion, one of his best scores, and I cannot believe this lost the Oscar to Midnight Express. Who remembers Giorgio Moroder's score for Midnight Express? I can't even think of a single note from that score, but everyone remembers John Williams' score for a reason, because it's so great. It's phenomenal. It gets your blood pumping. Especially the main theme. It's memorable, and it just it pushes all the right buttons. It's great. I cannot praise the score enough. I thought the film, when I was younger, I wasn't really the biggest fan of it because it was kind of slow paced. But as an adult, I appreciate it a lot more now. And because it does build the characters, it's the best origin story I think I've ever seen, because it does take the time to tell the origin, but it does it in a way that's not boring to me. And it didn't have that much action, but that's not what the film was trying to go for. It had enough. It had enough. It didn't need tons of it. It had enough, and that was fine with me. And of course, the costume, the costume design is great too. I mean, the Superman's costume was really well put together, and yeah, everything just comes together in this movie, and it just works so well. Like I said, it's like eating warm apple pie. It's delicious. It warms you up inside. They don't make movies like this anymore. And it's really a shame. It's a film that just makes you feel good after you watch it. And anytime I think about it, whether it's the score or whether it's Christopher Reeve's performance as Superman, I can't help but smile. And, I can't say the same for something like Man of Steel. But that's just me personally. But anyway, yeah, Superman the movie is awesome. It's a classic. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned for my thoughts on Superman 2.